Well, hello. We don't know if it's morning or afternoon, do we? Welcome to Celebrate Life Today with Pastor Rhonda. I am the founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry. And today I have with me Dr. Bodour. Okay, I can't say it.
Salhia.
Salhia. And she is a researcher, and she's going to tell you all about herself. Welcome, Dr. Bodour.
Thank you, Pastor Rhonda. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this invitation. So I'm Dr. Bodour Salhia from the University of Southern California. I'm an associate professor there in the Department of Translational Genomics. And we can talk about what that means. But essentially, we are trying to, translational genomics essentially is trying to convert or take from bench to bedside the genetic and genomic underpinnings of cancer and make meaning of that, and basically, translate that to better treatments for patients. So we're all about, translational research, and so taking that data from that, bench to the patient bedside. So that's what we strive to do in our department at large and in my lab, and it's an exciting time to be in science for sure.
So I remember we met about 3 years ago, maybe 4. And I remember hearing about the research project and wanting to be a part of it. As a cancer survivor, I am a stage 3B inflammatory breast cancer survivor. My journey actually began on 9/11, which makes me 20 years survivor this year. So, but I was interested because when I heard about your research project, it was a matter of wanting to make sure the patient received information after going through the journey. So can you tell us a little bit more about that particular project, and is it still going on?
Yes, absolutely. It is definitely still going on. COVID-19 put a bit of a dent into things, but we're back on track, and I'll tell you all about it. But essentially, the project stemmed from an unmet need in breast cancer. And that unmet need is, we don't know when women have completed the therapy, so standard of care, which women will have a recurrence and which women will not. So essentially, who is cured and who is not. We can't make that determination today. So my project was all about trying to figure out, which women are going to recur, so remain or are at high risk even after they finish their treatment. And essentially, when a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer today, physicians do provide a risk stratification. They can sort of predict which women might be at high risk at the time of diagnosis. And they use clinical pathological features, and also some molecular tests are out there. But those are not completely accurate all the time, meaning that women who are told they were high risk can actually be cured. And women who are told they are low risk may actually end up recurring and dying. And the other thing is, once a woman completes her therapy, that risk could also change. And so we just don't know. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop a test at the time a woman has completed her therapy to look in her blood to see if there's evidence of residual cancer, using very, very sensitive methods. And that would tell us if that woman is at increased risk of recurrence or not. And this is a blood test. And so my research then would entail collecting blood from women at various stages in their breast cancer, but especially towards the end of their therapy, and follow them over a course of several years to determine if our test can actually differentiate between women who are actually high risk and going to recur and those who are not. Mm-hmm. And so, translational research, so what's critical to translational research is basically patient samples. It is so critical to the success of our research. And I needed to be able to initiate a project to collect blood from women. And it's been challenging for various reasons. Those challenges are changing, and I can explain to you some of the latest developments and exciting sort of news that we have that's going to expand this project in a very exciting way. But at the time when I was starting this a few years ago, we were having, so I decided that I was going to go direct to patient and actually recruit women directly into my study. I'm not a physician, I'm a PhD, so I don't see and treat patients with breast cancer myself. And I have to rely on the medical infrastructure and my clinical colleagues to do that. But the thing is, there's so many studies going on. Who are they going to give blood to? So it's a little bit challenging sometimes. And also sometimes the infrastructure isn't there. And so that was kind of a few years ago. That's kind of where I was in the process. And so I said, I'm just going to go direct to patient. And I initiated a campaign, a social media campaign by doing that. But I actually called this initiative the Bench with Bedside initiative. So it's a play on bench to bedside. And the idea is, if I'm actually going to have the sort of the ability and the authority to sort of go direct to patient, I'm going to change the way things are done. I'm actually going to allow patients to stay involved with the research and be informed throughout the research process. So they're going to give us blood, but they're also going to know at various steps along the way, and sometimes it's like, the frequency of interaction can change depending on where we are in the project. But the whole promise was that, we are so grateful to you for giving us your blood sample, but we want you to be as engaged as you would like to be, and as engaged as we are able to engage you. So, we want to tell you what we're doing. We want to tell you what goes wrong. We want to tell you what goes right. And because there is this sort of, I would say, lack of transparency in research, where there is a bit of a kind of, not a bit, but kind of a big gap between, the patient and the researcher. And so I wanted to close that gap and be transparent by saying, this is kind of what's happening. And I think, I've emailed the women who have participated and said, we just had a major mishap. I'm really sorry about this, but it's kind of airing your dirty laundry, and it happens to everybody. So my project is about patient engagement. It's about returning, ethical data back. Like I cannot ethically say you are going to have a recurrence and you are not going to have a recurrence. I am not able to do that because it's still a research project and it's not conclusive. But I could say this is what we're finding, and these are, again, this is the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's happening. And so
when it comes to for the patient, when we hear about research, but we don't know how it happens, and then to learn along the way that somebody actually wants to keep talking to us, that was a big deal to me. I actually did receive one of those emails about the mishap, but it was a quick and easy fix so that you can continue doing your work.
Right. And I just, there are a lot of times, in full disclosure to everybody listening, is that when we get samples, we're not always able to use that sample for various reasons. And those reasons is, maybe the material, there isn't enough material. There was a mistake, there was a mix up. I mean, these things happen. I'm not saying they happen frequently in that, like, we lose the majority of it. No, I mean, I think that the enterprise is very, very careful and meticulous overall. And we're very, very careful in the lab to make sure that we're treating these samples with the utmost care and respect. But we're human, and things happen, and mistakes happen, and things go wrong, and things just sometimes don't work out, So the mishap that happened to us, if you remember, is on our very first blood drive, that we had all these women come to our lab and give blood. Basically, we were trying to extract DNA from blood, particularly some type of DNA called cell-free DNA. And we just didn't get it on the majority of samples. And it was like it was like gut-wrenching.
So help me understand, didn't get it.
The
What
something happened.
to...
The tube that we collect, we believe that the tube that we collected that blood in were faulty tubes. And, you know, for the majority of samples, something happened where that particular analyte just wasn't present. So we didn't have what we needed to do anything. And it was, you know, so I was like, you know what, this is the test, right? I'm testing the whole initiative. I emailed everybody and I said, could you please give us more blood? And I would say we got more blood from 50% of the women said yes, no problem. And I think the other 50% was probably just not being able to get to us for whatever reason.
Now, when you say women, is this just minorities or is this all women?
Everybody who had a history of breast cancer that was eligible for the study. We are very, very deliberate about, you know, recruiting across the board to making sure that we're representing all women with breast cancer with all demographics, socioeconomic, and racial. And for me, I'm not trying to overrepresent any one group. I want to represent our community. This is what our community looks like, and this is what our cohort of samples from these women should look like. And that would be, to me, successful. Now, we do know that there are differences between the markers in African-American women versus non-African-American women. And so for that, yes, we would have to tailor recruitment to African-American women to really get enough samples. So there's two issues, right? There's representing everybody, but then if you represent everybody and you get a little bit from everybody, then you don't have enough from any one group to actually test the specifics of that group. And so for us, like, we are going to have to initiate an outreach for African-American women to test specifically the markers that we believe are specific to African-American women, especially with those women who have triple negative breast cancer, because those are the markers that we believe could be quite different actually from the women who are non-African American, which are mostly white women.
So can you help us understand markers? That even as a survivor, I hear markers all the time. What is that?
Yes, so markers, you know, other words that you might hear for markers is you might hear liquid biopsy, you might hear biomarker, you might hear molecular test. So basically it's just a set of genes or proteins that track with a certain outcome in breast cancer or any disease. So here the markers are basically a set of genes that are differentially methylated. So we're not even just looking at just the straight up gene. We're looking at how that gene is modified. So there are modifications to those genes, and that is called, a type of modification is called DNA methylation. It's literally a chemical addition to DNA. And those chemical additions to DNA are different in cancer patients versus those who don't have cancer. And so basically we identified a set of genes that are methylated differently in women with metastatic breast cancer compared to women who are normal or who don't have metastatic breast cancer. And we want to then look for those specific gene modifications in blood, and we call those markers. And we believe that those markers, those gene modifications, track with recurrence. That's the hypothesis. That's what we're trying to prove. They track with they track with recurrence. And particularly metastasis, actually. So not just local recurrence, but we're really focusing on women who developed distant recurrence. So they, their breast cancer went to another part of their body.
And, I think we jumped into this a little quickly. We didn't even talk about what is breast cancer. I said, oh, we know, but everybody listening might not know. I tend to give an illustration of, I'll stand still and I'll invite someone to come and stand with me. I said, so now I was already abnormal. And then the next person comes and they stand real close to me. And because they're real close to me, they become abnormal. And then I invite someone else. And then before you know it, you have a cluster of people, which now you have a tumor in the cancer world. That's my layperson illustration. Can you tell us what is cancer?
Yeah, let me give you another way to explain that. So essentially, you know, we have cells in our body, okay? And normal cells have a very specific way in which they function, and every organ functions slightly differently. So essentially, cancer is just an abnormal growth of cells, okay? And what happens is that on a daily basis, we all get hits to the DNA inside of our cells. Because, you know, you have a cell, and inside of every single cell, there's trillions of cells in our body. And every single cell has a nucleus. Almost every single cell has a nucleus. And that nucleus is where the DNA is. Now, what happens is in a normal cell, if we you know, standing in the sun, breathing bad air, drinking bad water, eating bad food, like we're getting all kinds of environmental insults to us, to our bodies every day. And sometimes there are things that are carcinogenic that are going to cause a normal cell's DNA to become altered. So it's going to get a mutation, okay, that is going to cause that cell to become abnormal. Now, it's never just one mutation. It becomes an accumulation of mutations. And it literally just takes one cell to basically survive those alterations, because our body has mechanisms to get rid of bad cells. And our DNA is created in such a way where even mutations are mostly harmless, because we have so much buffering capacity in our DNA. But unfortunately, it's not perfect. Obviously, we know. And so if there is enough accumulation of alterations in a cell, and that cell can survive those alterations and not get rid of itself, because that's what the body is designed to do, either repair the alteration, and if it can't repair the alteration, it literally kills itself. Because we don't want bad cells around, because we know what happens, causes cancer. Okay. And so what happens is, if all of those mechanisms, repair mechanisms and checkpoints don't work, and if our immune system is weak, and that's another way of getting rid of bad cells, right, is actually the immune system fights them off. But if all of that fails, then you have one bad cell that basically survives everything. And then what happens is it acquires an ability to divide. Normal cells, most normal cells in our body don't divide. Like, for example, our brain cells don't divide. Like our fully differentiated brain cells don't. Yeah, they're always populations, and our skin cells divide, our gut cells divide, hair cells divide. But when you have this abnormal growth of cells, that's what cancer becomes. But it's not just abnormal growth, because an abnormal growth can sometimes just be a benign tumor. It becomes cancer when it acquires other properties, other phenotypes. Like some of the other, what makes it cancer not benign is that it can travel. The cells start to move around. So it has the ability to metastasize. It has the ability to evade the immune system. It has the ability to grow new blood vessels. It has the ability to grow limitlessly. It has the inability to kill itself. It has, there are several hallmarks of cancer. There are at least 9 now, hallmarks of cancer that make because just growing tumors, just growing cells, it's not good. We don't want any abnormal growth in our body. But benign tumor is curable. You just take it out as long as it's in an operable place and you're fine. But it becomes malignant when it acquires all these other features, like I mentioned. And that's basically what cancer is. So it's not just an abnormal growth of cells. It's an abnormal growth of cells plus the inability to, plus these other hallmarks I talked about. So I hope that was clear.
Yeah, and so I guess that's how people make the comment that everyone has cancer cells. Is that everyone has these cells and they begin to function abnormally, and then voila.
Yeah, so there is this theory that, you know, everybody has these little cancer cells in their body, these little minor tumors, but they just don't acquire enough of the other hallmarks. Like they never get enough food supply, so they don't ever make enough blood vessels to nourish their growth, and so they never go anywhere. You know, so in addition to, remember also though, in addition to acquiring mutations, like in adult life, you can also be born with genetic predisposition that, you know, either cancer hereditary genes or just some kind of other predisposition that basically helps kick the process into high gear. You know, it makes it easier for a person to get cancer.
Okay. Wow. This is amazing information. So, so how many people are you say you're still looking for people for the study? How are you going about that?
Yes. So let me tell you what's happening. So I'm actually probably after this interview, where I'm probably going to actually get an update out to all the women in the study. So we've gotten, I can't completely disclose the funding source, but in June we will be able to. We're kind of embargoed at the moment, but we just got, our project is about to grow. We're actually recruiting 1,000 women over time, and gonna follow them over time. But in addition to giving blood and being part of the research study, you're not gonna believe what we're adding. We're adding a survivorship clinic. So every woman who participates in the study will now be a part of a breast cancer survivorship clinic at the Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center at USC. And that survivorship clinic will be run by my colleague, Dr. Irene Kang, who's a breast cancer oncologist. So we're kicking up Bench with Bedside, you know, even further, because, you know, they're going to get, every woman is going to get something, like more than information. They're actually going to get care. They're going to be followed by a team of people. There is going to be not just medical care, but there's also going to be social and psychological care as well. So there'll be some, you know, information and on, you know, this might roll out and grow over time, but we're thinking about psychosocial therapy. We're thinking about occupational therapy. We're thinking about, you know, financial toxicity, you know, counseling, and, you know, because cancer obviously, you know, plays a, is a huge burden on people financially. And so, you know, we're going to basically really be very, very closely connected to every woman who participates in our study. And so we're very excited about that. And there's gonna be more information about this rolling out over the next month or so, with some teasers and kind of save the date sort of things coming out soon.
So from what you know, will the women have to pay for anything?
So I think initially during the funding period, there may not be a need to pay, but I'm not 100%. I think if they have insurance, there may be an ask for that, but that's going to be sort of up to like the USC sort of, that's like USC jurisdiction. That is totally not my jurisdiction. But I think we're talking about different models to try to minimize, you know, who has to pay. But there may be, if you have insurance, there may be a charge to your insurance, but none of that has been ironed out yet. So just take that with a grain of salt. But we know that every woman will have access to this survivorship clinic once they enroll into the study.
Well, I hope there's a thought for those enrolled with Kaiser.
Yeah. I think
figure out how we can be helped as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I feel pretty good about, you know, the prospect that I think that will be okay. I think beyond the study, which is 5 years, there definitely would probably have to be insurance to cover, because otherwise there's not. But I think there might be for the initial period. I think some accessibility for sure.
Okay, awesome. Nice. I'm excited to especially to be able to have all this housed under one roof.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about things like lymphedema. I'm thinking about neuropathy. And you have to go here. You don't know these
Yep.
people. You don't trust. You
Yep.
don't trust them up front. How can we get all of that in one place? Because survivorship, a lot of people think, oh, you finished with treatment, so you must be okay. But there are so many side effects that come with aftercare. Cardiomyopathy. There's so many things that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what the survivorship clinic will be all about, would be to help women who are survivors of breast cancer, but still suffer the consequences of treatment, and also be followed. And because we're going to also be very interested in recurrence and metastasis. And so people will be on close watch.
Mm-hmm. Because I actually, I was in between health insurances a few years back. And one doctor actually said, well, you have surpassed 8 years, so we're not legal. I mean, not insurance will not allow us to continue to follow you. But I had an aggressive cancer, they followed me for every 3 months for 5 years.
Did you have TNBC? Did you have triple negative breast cancer?
Inflammatory.
Inflammatory, right? But what subtype of inflammatory? Do you remember? Do you know?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So inflammatory is like the histological sort of subtype of breast cancer, but then there are the molecular subtypes. So whether you had triple
negative, was that something that's part of it?
Yeah. So HER2, if you were HER2,
I didn't have to take any additional medication when I was done.
I'm going to guess you were triple negative breast cancer. So 5 years is usually when they say, like, if you can survive triple negative breast cancer for 5 years, then that's usually like the point where people are comfortable about, being, I'll say it, like, they feel like there's a high cure rate by that point.
Oh,
so it's never 100%, I think, but if you can get past that 5-year mark with triple negative breast cancer, then that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign. So that's why 8 years, it's like, now women who have estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, they can have recurrence for up to 30 years after their initial diagnosis. But usually, and interestingly enough, aggressive ones they recur early and quickly. That's true also for the HER2 positives. But yeah, so that's probably why. And we haven't worked out the details of how long we're going to be able to follow women, but for sure for 5 years minimum, right? Because that's the study term.
So I'm going to ask a different question. A lot of African Americans that I have spoken to, they may receive a prognosis of stage 4.
Yeah.
But they don't believe that is equivalent to metastatic.
Oh.
Is that normally true? Are there times when that's not quite the same thing?
It's exactly the same thing. Stage 4 cancer is metastatic cancer.
Okay.
So if you're diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, it means you have metastatic breast cancer.
But the thing of it is that more people are living longer, even in a metastatic cancer state.
Yes,
so even if you were to receive that prognosis of stage 4 breast cancer, that does not mean you're dying this year, next year, because we know a couple of people who've been hanging around doing a marvelous thing for 15, 20 years as metastatic.
Yes, but that is still stage 4. It has spread to other organs. What that means is that it's not a curable disease. So the 5-year survival for women with metastatic breast cancer is far worse than a woman who has stage 1, 2, or even 3 breast cancer. I mean, it's like 22% 5-year survival if you have stage 4 versus like 90+% if you have stage 1. So it's not a death sentence anymore. People can live, but they will always be on treatment, and it's not curable. You need treatment to survive, basically. So as opposed to women with early stage breast cancer, there is an endpoint for treatment and there is a cure rate. Like, people can be cured of stage 1 breast cancer, but they cannot be cured of stage 4 breast cancer. But it can be kept at bay. So it can become more like a chronic disease, which is what I think a lot of people are okay with that. Like, fine, there's no cure, but like, you know, like living with diabetes, it's not cured. You have to take medicine every day, you know. And so I think while we try to find that cure for stage 4 breast cancer, just, you know, having it be a chronic disease versus, you know, a death sentence is still a much better alternative. And that's what you're seeing, is that you're seeing women are living with stage 4 breast cancer in a chronic setting. You know, and so that's definitely an improvement from where we were. And it's an improvement over other types of cancers who are stage 4. That is not true for many other cancers. It is not true for ovarian cancer. It's not true. Not saying it's impossible, but it's just the treatments for breast cancer are just getting better and better and better. So the disease is managed very successfully.
Okay. So I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and they were indicating, talking a lot about being nauseated. Is that something you could speak to at all? Basically, they were after chemotherapy, they were very nauseated. I know that sometimes they would tell me, you know, if you are cautious about what you consume, like spicy, citrus, and fried, those things can trigger nausea. I don't know if that's an area that you can address.
Not too much, but I mean, I think safe to say that, you know, chemotherapy really hits the gastrointestinal system hard, right? And so, because remember, chemotherapy basically attacks cancer cells that are dividing, and the gut, our cells in the gut are constantly dividing. And so that's why there's a lot of GI problems with chemotherapy. But I would say that it's probably, you know, I don't treat patients with cancer, but it's probably safe to say that, yes, number one, talk to your doctor. But number two, like, you know, there are probably trigger foods that would probably affect all of, like, if I eat a lot of spicy food and a lot of, like, I'm going to get nausea, you know what I mean? So if you kind of already have an unhappy gut, those foods might trigger even more symptoms. But you know, because there's certain foods that I think you also need to avoid and whatnot. So the best thing is to talk to your oncologist about your symptoms and how best to manage them. There's also some drugs that you can take, like proton pump inhibitors, that, you know, that your doctor might be able to give you.
Gave you already.
Yeah, that might help that acid build up and reflux that you might be experiencing, that could help with those symptoms. So definitely talk to your doctor about it. There's no need to have to suffer in pain when there's some solutions out there.
And then definitely pay attention to what you ate when you felt that way.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And no, like, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. Like, everybody's going to have a different trigger. And so you might want to say, okay, that didn't make me feel good. Maybe I should not eat that again, and see if that helps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I told her the right thing then.
Good.
So is there anything you would like to promote or to tell us about?
No, I mean, I think we're just really excited about expanding this work, and you know, to really follow women over time. We also anticipate some data coming out in the next few months. I think one of the things that I'd like to say, especially if any of the women who are participants in this in my study are on listening, is it just takes so long. You know, the process is so long, and it's so it's kind of tedious in the sense that, like, you really need to be patient, and you need to be tenacious and persevere through, again, the ups and the downs, the delays, you know, because that's what's going to get you to the finish line. And you know, you have to be committed, and you have to believe in what you're doing. Otherwise, you know, it's just not going to work out. And so we're hoping that we can really, you know, in the next few months, have some exciting data to share with everybody, but also to expand the study like I said, to include more care for the women who are participating and to get more information and data from the women who are participating so that we can actually not just use a molecular marker to stratify risk, but to use many other types of parameters to build this risk classifier, a model of recurrence to say, women who have, these other characteristics that are not even biological, but more social behavioral characteristics, that those together with a molecular test might then really be accurate in predicting who is that woman who is likely to recur and who is that woman who is likely to be cured. So that's my vision, that's my dream for the study. And, I really, I'm looking forward to building upon what we've already done.
Did you want to share your screen now?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I think, I think it might be ready for you to share. Yeah, so this is our website. It's called the Bench with Bedside Initiative.usc.edu. I never explained what that means. So bench to bedside is, laboratory discovery to patient treatment on the bedside. And so the Bench with Bedside was a play on that, meaning scientist at the bench collaborates and works and engages with patient at the bedside. And so this site, this will become taking the eligibility survey. This will become, you can take it now actually, but we're going to be actively enrolling women again here really, really soon. And actually, the other thing you should know, Pastor Rhonda, is that we're not doing blood drives anymore. We're just going to have women come to USC. Probably we're going to kind of try to keep it like to once a week, but they can choose any week, like, they can come at their own time. So we don't have to have the pressure of getting so many women in one place at the same time. That was a bit challenging. But if you can see, like, you can go here and you can read about, a little bit about metastatic breast cancer. There's a video about kind of what we've been doing. And yeah, this is obviously, it's a little bit outdated from our last event. But, you can also read about what Bench with Bedside, hopefully, I don't know why it's not actually working for some reason, or it is, but it's slow. But you can read about the different aspects. You can read about what the Bench with Bedside is. You can read about the research project itself and what we're trying to do. You can contact me. I guess my internet's a little bit slow, but yeah, so here it is. So the goal of the Bench with Bedside is, to empower, to involve, to provide transparency in research, to collaborate with you as a patient, to give you hope and to engage you. And, we really believe that transparency is key and that we want to take, these two parallel roads that are walked, the researcher and the patient, we want to cross them. We want to work together to solve what is a common goal. And again, you can read about the project in more detail, but you can also tell us your story. So feel free to email me. You can see my emails at the bottom of the screen. You can also go to the website and send us a message and send us a story. You can reach out to me if you're interested in participating, if and definitely can give you more information on how to do that. And also pay attention to Facebook ads. They're going to be rolling out here again in the next few weeks to basically give you the opportunity and the ability to link with us and give a sample. It's going to take a couple of months for the clinic to be up and running. It's not ready to go, but we'll be enrolling women in the study in the meantime. And then as soon as the clinic opens up, we'll roll you right into it. But that's basically what's happening right now. I mean, we have other projects actually, but the other thing that I just want to add about the test, it's a liquid biopsy. So this, it's basically a blood test, and it's using tumor DNA that actually literally floats around outside of the cells. So I told you that DNA is in your nucleus, right? Well, there's actually DNA outside of your nucleus, and it's chopped up into little bits and it floats around. And so we actually like harvest that, and that's what we analyze. And that type of a test, depending on, regardless of how you analyze the DNA, is called a liquid biopsy. And it's actually supposed to forego eventually tissue biopsies, because it provides you potentially with the same, if not more, information than a biopsy. And in the instance for us, when we're looking for something called minimal residual disease, there's no way for us to detect that right now. So if there's any residual cancer cells in the blood at the end of a woman's therapy, we can't detect it. There's no imaging, there's no molecular, there's no test. But a liquid biopsy using cell-free DNA, and particularly methylation, might be exactly the way that we would be able to do that. And so that's what our test is entailing. It's a liquid biopsy, which analyzes the chopped up pieces of extracellular DNA that floats around in your blood shed by your tumor. It's very, fascinating.
It is very fascinating. Yes, yes. It sounds like you need to give a tour of the lab.
Yes, I think so. COVID, I mean, I don't have to explain to anybody what COVID did, right? But we were on lockdown. We weren't allowed to collect samples. We weren't allowed to do anything. Well, we are officially back. We've been back at half capacity, but as of last week, USC is now back at full capacity, 100% capacity, still with physical distancing and masks and all of that. But a lot of our community is now also vaccinated. And so we're opening back up, and all of those patient activities are going to be allowed. We are going to be allowed to resume those activities. So there's going to be a little bit of a ramp up, but we'll be, once we can do that, then I'll be really glad for, yes, women to come and, take a tour of the lab the way that first group of women who came did, right? That was part of my whole plan. It was like, first it's like, we're going to keep you informed. Then it's like, well, if you're going to come all the way, I might as well show you the lab too. And some women actually saw their blood being spun down in the centrifuge tube. But since that time, like, all those bloods are stored in a very cold place, it's a minus 80 freezer. And we've been sort of doing everything that we have to do, and trying to get information. I think part of the dilemma that we had was we didn't get all the information we needed from everybody. And we've, I think, bypassed that now, because we got permission to access the SEER registry. So we'll be able to get the information on the breast cancer from every woman, so we can properly put people in the right groups. And we're going to be following up. Our team is going to be growing, so I'll have a lot more help, to kind of, keep things the way they need to be moving. But yeah, that's
awesome. This has been a great conversation, Dr. Bodour. I truly have enjoyed even just learning from the beginning several years back, because I think you were one of the first researchers that made it make sense to me.
Oh, thank you.
Made it make sense, because there's so many, sometimes the researchers are always in the lab and they're not in the community. But when you can get community and scientists together to have a conversation, and both can share to help us understand and to grow the understanding, and what people actually go through on the outside after they're going, or in the midst of being a part of a research project. And I know there's a lot of research conversations going on now in regards to COVID, but there's just more to it than we know as the community. But we really are thankful for the scientists that are doing the work and making this happen for us, improving our lives every day.
We're trying, and you make it real. All those people who have suffered from cancer, make it real, and every day, and that was the thing that's important to me, is that when you engage with people who you're trying to help, it's very different than when you're working with a tube that there's no story to, there's no connection, because you don't know of course we have to anonymize, we have to be, but when I love to engage with the community because it just is it's a good reminder. It makes it real. I learn from patients just as much as they might learn from me. And, it really is a collaboration. And I think there's a lot to be gained by building upon this idea and this model. And I'm excited to grow this, and I look forward to whoever might be listening, if you've been impacted with breast cancer, to join our study. And we are going to simplify even more the eligibility criteria a little bit, to open it up to many more women. And even if you were not impacted and you want to be involved in somehow, just reach out, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
And so for women, is it just Los Angeles, Southern California, or nationwide?
So for the survivorship clinic, it's going to be obviously easier for women who probably live in LA and can get to the clinic. So it's going to be housed at the Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center in Los Angeles. But in terms of blood collection, we are actually opening it up. So there is going to be a way for women to remotely send us a blood sample if they can get it drawn the next time they go to their doctor or get a lab test. So we're going to open it up. Nationwide, that's the goal, ultimate goal, but it'll be a little trickier to do that. But yes, for sure, I would say I really envision, I would say if we can get the remote collection all sorted out, we'll be able to open it up nationwide. But definitely within California, because again, we're bypassing the need to have to physically be present to give blood, or have one day where everybody has to come. So if you live, you can drive to where, let's say, like any Wednesday of every week, right? Like every Wednesday, there'll be a series of time slots that are open that you'll be able to come and give us, join the study and get consented and enroll. But ultimately, really, we want to open this up so that it's remote. So women from across the state and potentially across the country can also give us a blood sample.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Bodour, thank you so much for being with us today, enlightening us and educating us a little bit more about research, and especially about the project that you're working on.
Thank you so much, Pastor Rhonda, and thank you to all the listeners. And again, I look forward to reaching out to you again soon too, Pastor Rhonda. You're going to hear from me, probably again next week.
Awesome.
Yeah, but thank you, and have a really happy and safe weekend.
Thank you. So again, I am Pastor Rhonda, founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, and your host for Celebrate Life Today. And we can actually be reached if you would like to be a part of our show, be a guest on our show. Feel free to send us an email at celebratelifetoday2021@gmail.com, or give us a call at 323-577-5443. And if you are a cancer survivor in need of support, no matter where you live in the nation, feel free to give us a call and we will support you as well. We provide monthly support group meetings, which we're actually meeting tomorrow. I don't know when this is going to show, but we meet on the first Saturday of each month. And tomorrow we're actually, which is, I keep saying tomorrow, April 3rd, we're actually having a mental health and cancer session held by some other individuals from USC and the Norris Cancer Center. They will be facilitating with us. And you can watch that. You can find that replay on Facebook or YouTube as well if you miss the broadcast. And we provide the monthly support group meeting, home and hospital visitation. We do treatment buddies, telephone buddies, as well as hospice support. So whatever your need is, or whatever you need in regards to your cancer journey, whether you're a cancer survivor or a caregiver, reach out to us because we would love to serve you. And our goal with every session that we have is that we would bring you information that will help you to choose life. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time.